Hi there, and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman.
And I'm Paris Schutz. Here's what we're looking at. Disgraced singer R. Kelly is sentenced to 20 years in prison, all but one of those years to be served concurrently with Kelly's existing New York sentence.
This is something that we must not forget.
A year into the Russia-Ukraine war, how families are finding refuge through schools and churches in Chicago. We're live in Ukrainian Village.
And we hear what Loyola legend Sister Jean has learned in her first 100-plus years.
And Brandis and Paris, as you mentioned, I'm in Ukrainian Village as part of our Chicago Tonight in Your Neighborhood series. Now, this community has been a safe haven for hundreds of Ukrainians. We spoke with a few who are reflecting on a year-long fight for freedom against Russia. You'll also hear from some community leaders who are paving the way for refugees here in Chicago. We'll have that and much more. But first, I send it back to you.
Thanks, Joanna. And now to our top story tonight. A federal judge in Chicago sentences R. Kelly to 20 years in prison for convictions on child pornography and enticement. However, all but one of those years will be served concurrently with Kelly's existing New York sentence. WTTW News reporter Matt Masterson joins us now to break it all down. So, Matt, explain this sentence to us. Is it what the prosecutors had sought?
It's definitely not what prosecution wanted in this case. They had sought an additional 25 years in prison for R. Kelly on top of the 30 years that he's already gotten in this New York racketeering and sex trafficking case. Instead, as you said, he'll only serve one additional year on top of that 30-year sentence that he already got. So why not more time in the case today? Judge Harry Leinenweber cited Kelly's age of when he'll get out, his own sexual abuse when he was a child, and his unlikelihood to reoffend if and when he does get out of prison after the sentence is served.
So if this is to stand, it looks like he could get out at some point before the end of his life. And State's Attorney Kim Foxx dropped the charge in Cook County, saying he will definitely be in prison the rest of his life. It doesn't look like that could be the case. So what was the reaction that you heard after the sentencing?
Prosecutors are obviously disappointed with the lack of the additional consecutive time, but they said that this 20-year sentence that he got does hold him accountable for the years of abuse that he did unleash on these victims. Kelly's supporters and families were in court. They were obviously much more pleased. There were some cheers both in the courtroom and down in the courtroom lobby after the hearing. And Jennifer Bonjean, Kelly's defense attorney, she called this a win for her client, though she did note that it is very likely that he does never walk out of prison alive after this sentence.
Did any of the victims speak at the hearing here? Or did Kelly speak himself?
Kelly did not speak. He still has one more case pending in Minnesota, so he was advised by his attorney not to say anything. But we did hear from 3 of Kelly's victims in this case, 2 of which spoke in person and 1 spoke through her attorney. One of those was Jane, Kelly's goddaughter, who was seen in these illicit sex tapes that were shown in court. In her own victim impact statement, she said, "Let me be clear, Robert Kelly is no saint. Does anyone really believe Robert is not in those sex tapes? Does anyone believe that what happened to me is okay?" These victims all asked the judge to sentence Kelly to a term that would prevent him from ever getting out alive.
And as we mentioned, we had Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx on here explaining why she dropped the charges, again saying, given all these cases, there's a case in Minnesota in state court there still pending, he'd likely spend the rest of his life in prison. So did Fox say anything about maybe reconsidering that?
It seems unlikely that anything's going to be reconsidered. She had said previous to this case that justice had been served with this 30-year sentence that Kelly got out of New York. And she knew going into today that it was possible that Kelly got either very little time or no time at all. So the fact that he got 1 more year probably doesn't change the calculus for her on her own case. She did issue a statement today reiterating her previous point that she felt justice has been served with Robert Kelly.
All right. Matt Masterson, thanks for following this for us.
Thanks, Paris.
And you can read Matt's full story on our website. It's all at WTTW.com/news. And now back to Brandis and some other top stories tonight.
Paris, one election is underway, but state election officials say they're probing some activity from the last election. Crane Chicago Business reports that the State Board of Elections is moving toward investigating GOP gubernatorial candidate Darren Bailey. Specifically, the board found justifiable grounds to investigate whether a political action committee supporting Bailey and run by conservative activist Dan Proft illegally colluded with the Bailey campaign. Proft ran a PAC called People Who Play by the Rules. By law, political campaigns cannot coordinate with independent expenditure committees. The board will next assign a hearing officer as it moves forward in this case. State leaders are touting another upgrade to the state's bonds. Today, S&P Global gave Illinois a rating of A-, the third such upgrade since July 2021. The news comes just a week after the governor's budget address in Springfield. S&P last upgraded the state in May 2022, crediting Illinois for paying long-standing debts. This upgrade follows others from ratings agencies Fitch and Moody's Investor Service over the last 2 years. And some troubling signs about weekend safety bubbling up online. Local and national law enforcement agencies are warning about activity that suggests neo-Nazi and anti-Semite groups are planning what they're calling a day of hate this Saturday, February 25th. The Illinois State Police cites increasing violent extremism messaging and online hate groups. They're urging folks to be on the lookout for suspicious vehicles, circumstances, and individuals, and to report that activity to law enforcement. We'll have more on this disturbing news tomorrow night. And the election is just 4 days away, so don't forget to visit our WTTW News voter guide before you head to the polls. We have candidate profiles for those running for mayor and aldermanic positions, plus responses to questionnaires, and of course, our ongoing political coverage. It's all at WTTW.com/voter guide. Up next, families from overseas finding refuge in Chicago 1 year into the Russia-Ukraine war. Joanna Hernandez with that story right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by Alexandra and John Nichols, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
Tomorrow marks a year since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Millions of people have since fled that war-torn country, some seeking refuge here in Chicago. For this week's In Your Neighborhood, Joanna Hernandez and producer Acacia Hernandez spent time in Ukrainian Village speaking with those who are now calling that community home. And Joanna joins us now.
In Paris, this hasn't been an easy transition for those Ukrainians forced to leave their home. We spoke to someone who described it as if someone would take their life and cut it in the middle. It's been almost a year since Dima Rumen and his family escaped Ukraine.
It was a totally normal life without anything who can told you tomorrow will be war and you need to take some things and go to United States.
Rumen reflects on those painful flashbacks of the day his family was forced to leave his home in Kyiv.
We write our name and phone numbers on my son Ilya's jacket on the inside of the jacket, because we thought if something will be happened, he must leave.
They lied to us, destroyed our nation. They couldn't stand that we could see.
A heart-wrenching reality Olga Satarva sings about.
It's about the blame I felt then, that there are children dying in Ukraine. They are being killed, and why am I alive?
Satarva managed to escape with her son while her husband stayed behind to fight. She's now a manager at a cleaning company hiring other Ukrainian refugees.
A helpless cry of mother who has lost her child.
On a mission to use her voice to raise awareness.
This is something that we must not forget, because if we want to protect democracy and freedom, we must protect it. We must take action. If we don't stop this evil in Ukraine, it will spread further.
On the near west side of Chicago, Ukrainian Village has become a pillar of hope for hundreds of Ukrainians.
We are seeing a lot of new arrivals, and we are trying to help everybody as much as we can.
At the Self-Reliance Association, Program Director Oleg Malsky says since November, they've assisted hundreds of Ukrainians with English classes to state benefits.
We help them to file and advocate for their Medicaid, that's a health insurance through state, SNAP, that's Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, that's food stamps so-called, and also cash assistance.
Once a professor in Ukraine, Nadia Smolmikovich says she found strength working at the organization since she fled the war.
I missed my relatives in Ukraine at first, my friends. I missed my co-workers because we were very friendly, and I worked at different universities.
And at St. Nicholas Cathedral School, 75 Ukrainian students are starting a new journey.
Our goal is to make sure right now we focus on our current mission of educating these students so that when it is time for them to go back home, they feel like they have the tools that they need to be successful in their own country.
Rumen's son is one of the children attending the school.
You came to the new country, don't know nothing. And people from the school take my son and told him, okay, we'll speak with him, we'll explain everything. Sometimes he's not understand English, sometimes he's not understand this one. He's show everything. We have 100% support. My wife also going here like a volunteer.
Is this your first game together?
Principal Anna Sorelli says the community has sprung into action by donating food and opening their homes for those needing a place to stay.
I guess that's the silver lining is all of the support that we've been receiving, and then to see these families and these children bond over this experience, I think is the absolute best thing that you could wish for in such a tragic situation.
What do you want for your son now here in Chicago? What do you want for him?
Good life here. I want he will study here, go to the college or something like this, and be American.
Do you sometimes feel bad that there's still hundreds of people in Ukraine that they could not leave?
Sure. I know 100 people cannot leave and they stay on the Ukraine and they cannot do nothing because they don't have a way where they can go.
Tomorrow, the community will be hosting a large rally on these church steps to reflect on Ukrainians' fight for freedom. Then they'll head to St. Nicholas Cathedral to hold a large vigil honoring the lives lost during the war. We'll have more on that. We'll have more for you later in the program. But first, Paris, I send it back to you.
All right, Joanna, certainly that'll be a solemn occasion tomorrow. Thanks very much. And up next, the dynamic 103-year-old Sister Jean. But first, we take a look at the weather.
College basketball's most famous fan, Sister Jean, is finally telling her own story. At 103 years old, the Loyola University Chicago matriarch is releasing the memoir, Wake Up with Purpose, What I've Learned in My First 100 Years. Here to tell us all about her new book is Sister Jean Dolores Schmidt, chaplain of Loyola University Chicago's men's basketball team. Sister, welcome to Chicago tonight. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
So you were approached a number of times about writing a book, telling your story, and you often said no. What drove you to write your memoir now?
Well, after I denied everybody else at the time of Final Four, then last August, just before school opened, Seth Davis called me after he had talked with our former basketball coach, Porter Mosier, and Porter said to him, oh, you know, yeah, she should write a book. I'll give you her phone number. So he gave him my cell phone number at that time and called me and was very persuasive. And I said, oh, I have to talk to my congregation and to my employer to see if I should do this. And they said, go for it, Sister Jean. So that's what I did.
So basketball and sports, we know they've always been important in your life. One game you say, though, that you remember vividly was the game of change with Loyola and Mississippi State. What do you remember about that game?
Well, of course I wasn't there because we just had a little television, like 11.5 inches, a little black and white. And another sister and I were watching this together. It was delayed. So no one told us, no cell phones or things in those days, no one even told us that we had won the game. So we were playing the game right along with them. And it was so exciting when they won. And it was just like spontaneous joy burst on Sheridan Road because the young men from Campion Hall, which was their residence hall, and the young came over to Mundeleин's coffee hall. They were the only two residents in the campuses, and got all the girls to go with them when they walked down the white line of Sheridan Road, practically to Evanston, saying, "We won, we won, we won." And it was just so exciting because it was actually a game of change. And as people review even the documentary that's been made now, they realize how important it was. The young men playing at that time had no idea that this was going to be so important in history, and that it truly was a game of change.
And of course, for our viewers, the game of change happened in the 60s when the Mississippi State team defied their own governor in playing an integrated team, which was the Loyola team at the time, and having to sneak off and play that game kind of almost in secret. You also write, it only took you 98 years to become an overnight sensation when Loyola was in the Final Four in 2018, and lots of folks outside of the Loyola family and outside of Chicago learned who Sister Jean is. What was that like for you at the time?
Well, it was very exciting, and after we won the first bracket, I woke up the next morning in the hotel room and I said to myself, "Ooh, this is not a dream. It's for real. Get going, girl." So I thought to myself, I should, because two people from our communications department came and said, "Sister Jean, there are some reporters want to talk to you." And I said, "Oh, you better come with me." So they came with me, and I was all mic'd up, and the reporters kept following me for each game. They kept coming to the locker room because they told me to go there to talk to the young men and so forth.
The importance of working with the young people and how important that has been to you over your career. Tell me a little bit about, why that's so important to you, and do the students keep you young?
Yes, they do. They really do. I try to keep up with their current vocabulary, which is sometimes a repeat of what happened in the 20s and 30s. The words they use, like cool, they think that's a new word. That's not a new word at all. But it's just fun to hear what they have to say. It's wonderful to watch the development of them from the time they come as freshmen, and they change so by Christmas time. I tell their parents when I talk with them that to expect to change, their children develop so and mature so over those few months. And I don't put that in a negative way. I mean, it's in a positive way. And they do. They become more responsible. They become very respectful of each other. They're with people they've never met before. And I have to say, too, that the faculty do a wonderful job in creating friendships and relationships with them and with their students, because they just see them and give them group work to do, and they learn a lot from that, and they learn how to share, and that's important.
At 103 years old, I know you don't have any plans to slow down. But
Not really.
How would you like to be remembered?
Well, I would like people to be remembered especially as they read my book. And Seth's book. I would like to be remembered as a compassionate person, one who really wants to relate to people, help people, and to remember me as someone who really loves God, loves them, loves what I do. And sometimes people ask me, well, do you really love what you do? Oh, yes, I do. When I wake up in the morning, after I thank God for bringing me to the day and asking Him to help me serve Him the rest of the day, I think of what I'm going to do that day. So that's where my purpose comes in, that I'm thinking of my own plans. Sometimes the plans don't go to fruition, but then you just readjust and do something else and do the plan the next day.
The purpose that you say that you wake up with in the title of the book. Sister Jean, it has been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us. Congrats on the book.
And lovely to talk with you, too. Thank you so much.
Of course. Again, the book is called Wake Up with Purpose, What I've Learned in My First 100 Years. Up next, we check back in with Joanna Hernandez, who's live from Chicago's Ukrainian Village neighborhood. Stay with us. What should the city be doing to better support Black Chicagoans who are victims and survivors of hate crimes?
Classic city of Chicago, we work in silos, so the left hand doesn't know what the right hand doing, and the constituents get left out in between.
Power is the voice. The power is the numbers. The power are the people. The ability to sway elections is the power.
And now we go to Joanna. Spent the day in Ukraine in your neighborhood series. Joanna.
And despite being thousands of miles away, the Ukrainian National Museum in Chicago is spreading awareness of what life is like for Ukrainians in that country. One of the museum's current exhibit is focusing on the population's most vulnerable, children. Inside the Ukrainian National Museum lies an exhibit depicting war through the eyes of children.
You see the pain, and they always say art is where you can see a child's pain or even an adult's pain.
The exhibit compares children's drawings during the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war to Polish children's art made during World War II and the German occupation.
The way children paint or draw tells a lot about what is sitting inside them, how they're feeling.
Since the war began, Lydia Tukachuk says the museum has seen more than 9,000 people come through its doors, eager to learn about Ukraine's history.
There seems to be a heightened interest, and yes, when the war broke out on February 24th, we had many, many people. We couldn't handle the flow of visitors.
Maria Klumchuk, the museum's curator, says it's been her mission to not only preserve her country's culture, but to also spread awareness.
Sometimes people forget about the war. They have some fatigue. We try to not only promote Ukrainian culture, Ukrainian peaceful idea everywhere, but that they are fighting for freedom.
Klumchuk's sister is a school teacher in Ukraine and says children are attending school out of bomb shelters. It's a communal effort to keep children safe.
This is how the children in Ukraine live, how the teachers live, how parents live, thinking about protection, how to save their life.
One panel in the exhibit signifies hope. Hope that one day children will see their colorful hometown the way they once did.
War will stop and children will smile again. They will have their own bed. They will play on their own background, on their own house.
And the museum has raised more than $100,000 in donations for Ukraine. You can see the Mom I Don't Want War exhibit through February 28th.
Before we let you go, Joanna, you mentioned earlier tomorrow marks 1 year since the war started. What can people expect out of the community rally there?
Well, so far we know, as I mentioned, the rally is starting here at 6:30. We actually just seen some people come by trying to prepare for this demonstration that they're going to have, projecting more than 365 photos of what war has been like for people who are living in Ukraine during the war.
All right, Joanna, we'll look forward to that. And thank you very much for your reporting tonight. And that is our show for this Thursday night. Don't forget to stay connected with us by signing up for our daily briefing. And you can get Chicago Tonight streamed on Facebook, YouTube, and our website, WTTW.com/news.
You can also get the show via podcast and the PBS video app. And please join us tomorrow night at 7 for the Weekend Review and at 10 for Chicago Tonight. Handicapping the race for Chicago mayor as the contest enters its final weekend.
And how Jewish communities are preparing for a potential day of hate by anti-Semitic groups. And now for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Paris Schatz.
And I'm Brandis Friedman. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that is proud to be a multilingual law firm that provides translators for a variety of languages.
From Carnegie Hall, two sensational divas got together to sing spirituals. Kathleen Battle and Jesse Norman.
When I think of a spiritual, I think of hope.
Everyone could feel what a moment it was.
Enjoy how Kathleen Battle and Jesse Norman made history through the magic of spirituals on Great Performances.
Friday at 8 on WTTW.
What is the latest we know about the victims here and the search for a suspect?
Are they a flight risk? Are they a danger to the community?
There are people caught in the middle of the battle over immigration policies.
We have some strong leaders in place that's going to turn this village around.
Nick, how widespread do advocates say these issues are?
We care about things that affect the